Shalom. First off, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Baruch Kwadash. I want to give double honors to the apostles, elders, and bishops of GMS who have taught us this word and teach us this word today. And I want to give a salutation unto the elect of the nation of Israel. This is the brother Yatazakbar with the GMS Nebraska camp. And in this lesson, what I want to get into is this article from End Time Headlines that's titled, "A Gathering Storm is Brewing That Could Pull Russia and China into a Direct Conflict with America." As we get into this article, it's kind of summarizing the current state of tensions between these global leaders, these different countries, primarily what's going on right now with the U.S. and Venezuela, where the U.S. is seizing oil tankers and sending warships into Caribbean waters, threatening Maduro's leadership, Maduro, the head of Venezuela, has the backing of Russia and China. Now we understand prophetically that Russia is going to be one of the main oppositions to the U.S. That's going to lead to America's destruction. So this is pointing towards World War III. This is pointing toward the prophecies that we read about, Russia destroying the U.S., sending missiles over here, and I want to get into, this article, get into some scriptures, that, as a matter of fact, let's start off with this precept here in Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 3, which says, "For the vision is yet for an appointed time." And the vision is speaking about the prophecies, these different prophecies that we read about in the scriptures have their appointed time that they have to come to pass. And we don't know exactly what day and, what time they're going to happen. But what it says is that, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. So they have an appointed time. And while we don't know when the appointed time is, it says at the end that they shall speak. Let's get that word speak, which is the Hebrew word, just Strong's 863:15, the Hebrew word pawach, which is to breathe, blow, to breathe, to cause to exhale or breathe. Let's see what it says in this precept. Okay, it just says to breathe. The vision hasted towards the end. Okay, yeah. So basically, it's symbolic that it says at the end it shall speak, which is basically saying that it's going to show itself forth. It's gonna we're gonna see these prophecies happening in real time. When we read about prophecies of World War III, we're going to start seeing things happening in the world that move in the direction of World War III, as we're about to get into here shortly. It says, "Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come, it will not tarry," which is saying that, there may be a time where we may not see these prophecies coming to pass at the rate we would like it to be coming to pass, or things may be kind of at a dead state. But as we're getting closer and closer to the end, these prophecies are going to ramp up. Now we're seeing the prophecy of the MOTB ramping up. We're seeing these different countries all around the world putting their infrastructure together so that the MOTB may be active. We see these different countries getting ready for war and going to war. We see these things coming to pass. So let's go ahead and get into the article, because it's going to show that this vision is speaking. So it says, this from December 18th, 2025. It says, "There are moments in history when the future announces itself, not with a single thunderclap, but with a series of distant rumbles, easily dismissed at first until the ground begins to shake beneath our feet." And that reminds me of the scripture where it talks about, let's grab this real fast. Let's see. This is 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 and verse 2, which says, "For yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night." And that goes into, like it said in Habakkuk 2 and 3, that though the vision tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come and will not tarry. Because the prophecies don't come to pass all at once, and things may take their time to start to happen, a person can get into the mindset to where they stop, they're not paying attention, or that they're not taking heed unto the warnings that these scriptures give us, or that the prophets are sending out. And that's why it says again, First Thessalonians 5:2, for yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night. And that thief, if you're looking out for that thief in the night, if you're prepared, knowing that the thief is gonna come, that thief won't catch you off guard. But if you're just chilling, you're not paying attention, that thief is just gonna come and break into the house and take all your things, and you're not even gonna know, because you're not paying attention. But let's read on. It says, for when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. Right, you may have a world leader that's trying to console his nation and say that that we're in a time of peace, or that things are under control, or you may have somebody that's saying everything is all good, everything's all right. But that's not the case, because that's not the will of the Lord. The scriptures say in Matthew chapter 10 and verse 34, it says, think not that I am come to send peace on earth. I came not to send peace, but a sword. And why is it the Lord's will that a sword should be sent upon the earth and not peace? Well, that's because this current wicked rulership that we're under has to be wiped away violently. It has to be destroyed so that righteousness can come afterward. As it says in 2nd Ezra chapter 4, where it says, let's grab this, 2nd Ezra 4:29, which says, if therefore that which is sown be not turned upside down, and if the place where the evil is sown pass not away, then cannot it come that is sown with good. So this destruction has to come, and World War III is going to be used to destroy this wicked kingdom that Esau is ruling. World War III is going to be used to bring a complete destruction here to America, and like it says, that evil has to pass away so that the good can come afterward. But let's go back to 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, where it says, in verse 3, it says, from when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. Right, just like you have a pregnant woman, and she knows that baby is going to come, and it comes out of nowhere. Speaking from personal experience, it's like day by day, you know this woman and she pregnant, and you get comfortable, and you don't know exactly when the baby's coming, but once it comes, it almost catches you off guard, because you're just used to just waiting and waiting and waiting, and then it just happens. Well, that's how these prophecies are going to be coming. In verse 4, it says, but ye brethren are not in darkness, that day should overtake you as a thief. Right, because we're watching, because we're sober minded, So let's go back to this precept's good. I want to read a little bit more. It says, ye are all the children of light and the children of the day. We are not of the night nor of darkness. Right, because that darkness and that nighttime represents basically a spiritual slumber. And these Israelites that's in the world, that's not minded upon the will of Yahweh Ba'ashem Hawashai, that's not minded upon these prophecies or righteousness, they are in a spirit of sleeping, and not a literal sleep, but they're just going about their days thinking that everything all good. They minded on things of this world. They minded on this current life. We're minded on the world to come. But we understand that for that world, for the kingdom, for the new heavens and new earth that we look forward to, we understand the hard path that we have to go through to get there. And we understand that path is going to come through these prophecies that we read about. So we're looking out for them, and that's why in verse 6 it says, therefore let us not sleep as do others, but let us watch and be sober. And that's exactly what we're doing, or what we should be doing. So let's go back to the article. It says, many believe we are living in such a moment now. Across continents and oceans, the language of leaders, the movement of armies, and the alignment of global powers all point toward a dangerous truth. The world may be drifting toward a conflict far larger than any single nation, one that could draw in Russia, China, and the United States in ways unseen since the last century's great catastrophes. For decades, Europe lived under the comforting illusion that major war had been banished to the pages of history books. That illusion is now unraveling. Right, that vision is speaking. It says governments are quietly preparing their populations for hardship, scarcity,
It's like
and
a video I got interrupted. But it said governments are quietly preparing their populations for hardship, scarcity, and sacrifice. Military budgets swell, civil defense plans resurface. Leaders speak openly of a war resembling the ones their grandparents endured. Right, because you had a NATO chief, Mark Rutte, and he said, yeah, well, they quoted it, that it was time to prepare for a level of war that our grandparents endured. Wars on the level of World War One, World War Two. And the scriptures say that. Let's get to it. Revelation 11:14, which says, "The second woe is past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly." And that word woe means destruction. And when it talks about the first and second woe in the book of Revelation, it's referencing World War One and World War Two. But it says, "What? Behold, the third woe cometh quickly." So it's a promise in the scriptures that World War III would come. And we're getting closer and closer to that time. And it's getting so real that now you have these leaders of countries that are warning their people that that's the case. So let's get back to it. It says, Salakia, this is not the language of confidence. It is the language of foreboding. When those entrusted with the safety of nations begin to warn their citizens to prepare for large-scale war, it suggests that the threat is not theoretical, but looming. And that's facts. This isn't a thing to where it may happen or, this could happen. No, this is going to happen. And the prophets have been saying it for a very long time that this is going to happen. But now it's getting to the point to where now these leaders are saying that it's going to happen. You have regular, citizens that are saying it's going to happen. The vision is speaking. Let's get 2 Ezra chapter 9, verse 5, which says, "For like as all that is made in the world hath a beginning and an end, and the end is manifest." The end is manifest. Let's get the etymology to that word manifest, which says clearly revealed to the eye or the understanding, open to view or comprehension, evident, palpable, plainly apprehensible, clear, apparent, evident. And the fact that you have these leaders that are saying, "Hey, man, this the time we in. That we need to prepare." That's showing us that it's being clearly revealed. The fact that you have these Russia is moving full steam ahead with the war in Ukraine. That recently there was the largest attack since the beginning of the war. It's not looking to slow down anytime soon. The fact that these different leaders are coming together to try to have peace talks and they keep on falling through. The fact that Israel is keeps saying, okay, we accept these deals to this ceasefire, and then they break the ceasefire. And then Hamas gets upset that the ceasefire is being broken, and then they retaliate, and it's just this repeat cycle. And the reason that's happening is because it's the will of the Lord. But that's showing that we're at the end. There is no hopes for peace. There is no hope for these things calming down. They won't. As a matter of fact, I want to get what's that? Let me see. Let's get Proverbs chapter 20. Proverbs 21:1, which says, "The king's heart is in the hand of the Lord, as the rivers of water, he turneth it whithersoever he will." And that's showing that Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai is the one that's causing these different leaders to make the decisions that they're making, that they're just in a warlike mindset. Even though they may sit down and have these diplomatic meetings and say, okay, we want to make peace, we want to get out of these wars. Well, that's not the will of the Lord. And so the Most High will, even though they may want to stop going to war, the Most High is making them keep going forward so that prophecy can come to pass. So let's go back to the article. It says, from Moscow, the message is unmistakable. Russia does not intend to yield. And the reason why that is because, like I mentioned earlier, the Lord is going to use Russia as an agent to fulfill his will. That's why we read in Ezekiel 38:2, it says, "Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him." Now, Gog is speaking about Russia. You know, that's who that chief prince is speaking on, Russia. It says, and prophesy against him and say, "Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws." And what that's speaking about, when hooks will be put in Russia's jaws, is that they're going to be put in a Soviet Union warlike mindset, which we see Russia going forward with right now. And that's why this article said what? Russia does not intend to yield. There's no thought in Putin's mind where he's going to step back from, this war. It says, "And I will bring thee forth in all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords," which means that, their army is going to be prepared, and their army is not only going to be prepared, but they're going to go out to war, as we see happening right now. Now, we're going to come back to this precept because it's going to speak a bit about, these next verses in this article. Well, it's not going to speak about the verses, but, you'll see what I mean. It says, "Russia does not intend to yield. Instead, it mocks Western leadership, deploys advanced weapons closer to adversaries, and dares its opponents to test its resolve. These actions are not merely symbolic. They are signals, warnings written in steel and fire." That's what the scripture means when it says that hooks will be put in Russia's jaws. They gonna be just be moving brazenly, sending drones in NATO airspace. That's a major violation. Russia knows about Article 5. Russia knows that NATO has to gear up and go to war if one of their allies is attacked. But they still doing little moves to push NATO. But it says, more troubling still, Russia is no longer confining its posture to Europe. It has begun issuing sharp warnings regarding conflicts far from its borders, declaring that certain actions by the United States can prove fatal mistakes. Now, what that's pointing towards is what the U.S. is doing with Venezuela right now, and that's showing. Well, let's read more in this Ezekiel 38. This is what I was referencing. It says, "Persia and Ethiopia and Libya with them, all of them with shield and helmet." So these countries and more countries is about to name is basically saying that these countries are going to be joined together with Russia. Persia, speaking about Iran, Ethiopia and Libya, African countries. It says Gomer and all his bands, the house of Togarmah of the North Quarters, which is speaking about Turkey. Both of them are speaking about Turkey. It says, "and all his bands and many people with thee." So it says many people, which is not only the countries that it named, but also other countries as well. So you can say China, Venezuela, for a couple of examples. They're going to be joined together with Russia. And what does it say? "Be thou prepared and prepare for thyself, thou and all thy company that are assembled unto thee, and be thou a guard unto them." The Lord was going to set Russia up to be a guard unto these different nations. And that's why, even though Russia is in a war with Ukraine and they got something going on right at their borders, you have the leader of Russia that is still issuing warnings for something that's going on across the world, because the Lord has Russia in the spirit to be a guard unto these different nations. And so let's go back to the article. It says such language is not chosen lightly. It reflects a worldview in which confrontation is expected, perhaps even inevitable. As history has so often shown, oil is rarely just oil. It is power, leverage, and bloodshed wrapped into one. The escalating standoff over Venezuela's oil exports has transformed an economic pressure campaign into a geopolitical powder keg. So you have Venezuela that's being encroached upon by the U.S. I talked about that situation a couple lessons ago with Esau's deceit and the narrative he's using to as to why he's going after Venezuela. Because you got Trump talking about it's about drugs and what they're sending into the country, but now he's just coming out straight and being honest that it's about the oil. So he's coming clean, and now they're taking these different oil vessels and seizing them. But you have Russia and China, and they're condemning America's actions, and now saying that it's a fatal threat, which is saying that if you keep on going and doing that, this is going to lead to retaliation. So let's get a precept real fast. Isaiah 13:17, which says, behold, I will stir up the Medes against them, which shall not regard silver, and as for gold, they shall not delight in it. And the Medes is speaking about the Russia. Now, this chapter, Isaiah 13, is a prophecy against Babylon the Great, which is America. And it says, behold, I will stir up the Medes against them. It's talking about that Russia is going to be stirred up against America. And it says, which shall not regard silver, and as for gold, they shall not delight in it, which is saying that there's not going to be a diplomatic route that's going to be able to be taken where Russia is going to calm down. There's not going to be no type of trade deal that's going to be able to be made. There's not going to be no peace talk, no kumbaya. It says what? Their bows also shall dash the young men to pieces, and they shall have no pity on the fruit of the womb. Their eyes shall not spare children. Because ultimately, what this is going to lead to is that Russia is going to shoot their missiles over here to America. That's what those bows are speaking about. That's why it says that it shall dash the young men to pieces. They shall have no eye on the fruit of the womb. They're not going to spare children, because those missiles, when a missile is shot upon a place, or let's look at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. That's the only example we can point to toward a nuclear bomb being let off on a civilian population. And when that bomb is let off, it destroys the whole area of where that bomb can destroy. It doesn't matter, man, woman, child, old person, baby, pregnant woman, disabled. It doesn't matter. Whoever is in the blast radius of that bomb is going to be hit by it. So that's what it's talking about. Where it says, when it talks about those bows dashing all these different people to pieces, it says, and Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldees' excellency, shall be as when the Most High overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah, which Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed by what? Fire and brimstone. Well, that's how America is going to go out. That's what the scriptures talk about when it talks about the second death. When it says the first was by water, the second by fire. America is going to be destroyed by that thermonuclear fire from the missiles. And the 2/3 of the nation of Israel are going to be caught up in it. That's what this truth is about. That's what these warnings are about. This warning is toward the nation of Israel, the so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans, that they may repent and turn to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, so that they may be covered by Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai and take hold onto grace, come into the Lord's secret place, that they may receive salvation once this destruction comes. Now, to get back on topic, reading a little bit more in the article, it says, when great powers challenge one another over energy, the consequences tend to ripple outward. And that's what this is stemming from. America wants that oil. And, oil is very important to these different countries. Oil has a lot to do with these countries' economies, because of how much oil is responsible for. Oil powers these cars, these planes, ships, trains. Oil is behind how you create plastics, fertilizers, all different types of things. And so it has a lot to do with these countries' economies, which has a lot to do with these countries' power. And America is greedy as hell. Esau is greedy, so they want that oil, which is why they're going so hard at Venezuela. But let's read on. It says, Russia's vocal defense of Venezuela is a reminder that alliances extend beyond geography. What begins as a regional dispute can quickly become a test of dominance, a question of who truly governs the global order. And hey, after this is all said and done, once this great destruction happens, because America ain't going to be the only one destroyed. Missiles is going to be shot at these America going to be shooting their missiles at these different countries as well. Now, they won't be completely destroyed, but they're going to take a hit. And once it's all said and done, not only in World War III will these missiles be shot, across the globe, but our Lord Yahweh Shai is going to return with the angels as well. And as Esau's kingdom is fallen, Yahweh Shai is going to be coming to establish his dominance. Yahweh Shai is going to be coming to establish his leadership of the global order. That's what the scriptures prophesy in Daniel, is it chapter 2, where it talks about the great statue where that stone is going to come to crush the 10 toes. You know, because them 10 toes is, the feet with the iron mixed with clay is representing the current global power today, which is NATO and EU led by America. But that stone is going to come to crush them feet and destroy that image in Daniel chapter 2. And that stone represents our Lord Yahweh Shai. Well, it says China's voice has joined the chorus of opposition to U.S. actions, offering diplomatic backing to Venezuela while deepening its strategic alignment with Russia. While Beijing speaks the language of restraint, its positioning reveals something deeper, a world dividing into rival camps, each convinced it must resist the other or risk decline. And so the thing is, these tensions is going to rise and rise and rise to the point where it's going to be full-blown war. Russia and China have both said that they're open to sending troops to Venezuela to back them up if, the U.S. and Venezuela were to get into a ground war. So sides are being chosen, and we're getting closer and closer to that time. Let's read a little bit more and then we'll close the lesson out. It says, China may not seek open war, but neither did many powers on the eve of past global conflicts. Support need not come in the form of soldiers to be decisive. Economic leverage, strategic coordination, and political unity can all serve as accelerants when tensions ignite. So it's kind of saying, it's kind of repeating itself a bit. It's just a little bit left in the article. Like I said, this is from endtimeheadlines.org. The title of the article is "A Gathering Storm is Brewing That Could Pull Russia and China into a Direct Conflict with America." So the time is coming soon. And again, this is all pointing towards Esau's downfall. And so we need to hasten these times. Let's grab that as a matter of fact. Let's see. It's like in 1 second so I could look for this precept. All right, here we go in 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 11, which says, "Saying then that all these things shall be dissolved," which is going to come from that fire. It says, "What manner of persons ought ye to be in all holy conversation and godliness?" Right, which is saying, knowing that the end is coming, knowing that the ungodly is going to be destroyed along with this kingdom, then what does that mean for us? That means that we supposed to be moving righteously, walking that straight gate, so that we may be found worthy to be of the elect and be saved. It says, "Looking for and hasting unto the coming of the day of the Most High." And this is characteristic of the elect. The elect is going to be looking for the end, which means they're going to be watching. But it says that they're going to be hasting unto the coming of the day of the Most High, which means that they're going to be hurrying it along. We're supposed to be praying until Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai that these things can be wiped away. Let's grab that word hasting, which says the Greek word sputo, which is to make haste, to desire earnestly. And if we desiring it earnestly, that means that we can't be focused on these things in this world more than we're desiring for this world to be for this world to pass away. We can't be too invested on this side. We have to be pilgrims upon this earth, so that we can desire the destruction of this place properly. It says, "Looking for and hasting until the coming of the day of the Most High, wherein the heavens being on fire shall be dissolved, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat." So Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. Once again, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai Baruch HaKadosh. I want to give double honors to the apostles, elders, and bishops of GMS, and a salutation unto the elect. Shalom.